Good afternoon, Scott Baker.
Here we are, Mikey. It's Monday afternoon, 3 o'clock Eastern Time. Thank you to everybody joining us for a conversation about today's field note from Admired Leadership. Lead Better is the name of the program. And the title today for Field Note 1649, When You Don't Believe People Have the Potential to Succeed. Mm-hmm. It's an uncomfortable thing.
Yes.
Leaders are in this situation all the time. They're trying to read the room and they see a person's future in their mind and they have a certain vision of what that looks like. So what do you do?
Yeah. And forgive me for mentioning his name out loud, but Tommy is the kid who comes to mind, right? The homeschool kid who was just absolutely sure he was going to make the NBA, right? Wasn't on a school team of any kind, but in all of his experience was just backyard driveway basketball, but was convinced, he was going to make it into the NBA. And so Tommy is not in the NBA, right? But how to be able to talk to Tommy about this is something that, from the time that I've been in junior high has been a little bit of a dilemma. How do you bring this up to Tommy?
But Tommy Brady came in last round of the draft. Right.
That's a little bit different, right?
Is it?
There was no round of the draft where Tommy was going to even come close. He wouldn't even have made my private school high school team, right? But he was convinced he was going to make the NBA. And so it's just like, you want to be kind to Tommy. You just need to, how do you stay kind to him, tell him the truth, make the situation better? Because other people are going to make fun of him. So if he continues to say this out loud.
Sure.
So there's all kinds of things that come up. And it's not just a conundrum that a kid comes up with. Like you have people whose aspirations completely go outside of their ability. And when they talk about those aspirations, you're like, okay, right? I'm already having a hard enough time trying to sort out the three people who actually have the ability, who want this position, who want this promotion. Right. So I have to sort out how to talk to them, much less the guy who lacks enough self-awareness that he has no clue about whether or not he's going to vie for that position or not.
Well, here's the good news. At the heart of this field note is a really helpful way to approach this. And I think it's probably already in some part of our minds. And I think that, the field note says early on that leaders are notoriously wrong when they make these judgments about where you're going to go, right?
Yes, because Michael Jordan's baseball coach cut him from the freshman team, right? Or from the basketball coach as well. Like he wasn't starting his opening year, right? Now, I don't think that freshman coach ever doubts it. But if he said certain things to Michael Jordan in such a way, now I'm sure Michael Jordan probably had bulletin board material in his junior high years, the same way he notoriously had it all throughout his career. So maybe that coach telling him no is the thing that did it for him. But that's the one thing that as leaders, it's part of this paradox. It's like, I'm not always good about evaluating talent for 18 months down the road. If you actually get the skills in place, maybe you could play in the NBA. Tommy, you're definitely not playing in the NBA, right? But I would have been loved to have been proved wrong that way. But it's still, that's why it's a hard thing for leaders to be able to address.
Well, here's the thing. And I don't think, we can all picture in our mind the cruel leader, the cruel athletic coach, the cruel teacher who says, you don't have it, right? This is not the direction you should go. You need to do this. And you probably had teachers or coaches like that. I certainly did. I had early employers that did that. I once told, I think, the account of when I was working, I took a year off from college and I was working at the Voice of America in Washington, D.C. And I had an overnight job at a radio station in Baltimore on Fridays and Saturday nights. And I got to be on the air a little bit, right? So I'm in 21, maybe, 2021. And this is kind of cool. Like my mom down in Annapolis, Maryland, could listen at 1 a.m. and hear me kind of give the weather at the top of the hour, right? And but then the guy called me in one time. I drove up to Baltimore from D.C. in the middle of the day, took a day off, and because he wanted to meet with me. And I thought, look, this is going well. Maybe I'll get a better. And he's like, really appreciate it. Now you clearly are never going to have a career in broadcasting on the air. And I was like, okay, All right. Now, I'd already had a pretty good track record of stuff that I thought I was good at, and I thought I kind of was okay with this. But I'm hearing from this guy. Now, we all hear about people who are like, I am going to go out and prove you wrong. That was not actually how I felt about it. I was just like, really? What is the way that I'm coming across? Maybe it's not quite what I'm thinking. But you have those moments. Now, I don't think that guy was trying to be cruel. And I don't think that most coaches or leaders, I think they actually think they're trying to be kind. Right? Yes. They're trying to be like, I'm gonna shield you from future disappointment by helping to guide you in a better direction.
Right.
Now, all kinds of anecdotal stories. I will say on probably the balance, we hear about the exceptions. Let's take if we took 100 people that wanted to get to whatever the metaphorical NBA is, and you put them with leaders, probably most of the leaders are going to look and be like, you're not getting to the NBA. Like they probably can intuit that.
Yes.
How do you deal with those people?
Well, you should also say that those people who they would predict would get to the NBA, they're probably wrong about 90% of those picks as well.
Yeah. Yeah. And by the way, I've studied that part too, both in sports and in musical performance. And usually, like I remember talking with a high-level teacher at Carnegie Mellon University here in Pittsburgh, many stars of music, Broadway, all kinds of things. And he coached, vocalists. My daughter had gotten into that program. And I said, how many of your students are performing now, like after all these years? And he teaches 6 or 7 students a year, did this for 15 years. And he goes, oh, I have the highest record of anybody. And it was like, 11. Oh, and I was like, oh, so 90% of the people that you teach don't end up doing the thing that they're paying $250,000 to learn how to do. And he's like, yeah, right, because it's really hard. I was like, yeah. And I asked him, I said, is it the people that were most talented? Could you tell? He goes, actually, the most talented people that come into this program usually are ones that don't succeed. And why is that? They don't work hard enough.
Yeah, I would guess the mental grit that it takes to actually stick with this. Eventually.
Well, they actually felt blessed. Like they were like, I'm so good. Everybody will just, and they were conditioned through their early developmental years, probably their parents are just like, you're just so great.
Right.
And then they get to where the grind starts and they're not ready for it and they can't handle it. Right. So sometimes it's the person, like maybe a Tom Brady, who's going to be like, I'm going to go in and practice for 2 hours extra in the morning before anybody gets there.
Okay.
So in that, here's the deal in this field note, which is saying, all right, leaders are notoriously wrong. You may be reading this person in the room right. So what is the best way for you as a leader to advise the person on your team? Maybe you're dealing with somebody that is in your extended family, whatever that may be. And I think the advice here is the right advice.
Yeah. The better choice for leaders is to be perfectly honest without commenting on the long-term potential.
That's
or the innate qualities that the leader believes might be missing.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
So, and what that essentially
does. Here's where you are. Here's where we see it.
Your aspiration from the skill set. It separates those two things out.
You don't even have to address the aspiration.
Right.
Let's just say you're here. Let's see where we go to get you to here. And I'm not going to take you from a 4 to a 9. Right. And maybe you get to a 9 and you shock me, but I'm going to say, all right, you're here. Let's look at the next step. Let's look at the next step. Just focus on those steps. You're going to make them better. You'll get better as a leader in this process. Everybody wins.
Right. So if you're promising something that you feel like you do have some control over, and maybe it'll take a little bit of effort, but you're promising to work hard to get them from a 4 to a 5, and maybe you're very detailed about what it takes to be a 6 and a 7 and 8 and a 9 all the way up the line. But you're not promising that. You're saying, let's work right now on the specific skills. Let's be highly specific about what it's going to take, what others look for in being able to get to that next role. But we're just looking for you to be, move from a B player to an A player, right?
Yeah.
And that's it, right? Now everyone who gets the position, they're all A players, and so there's more stuff that we're going to have to work out up there. But let's just kind of keep it. And the more you break it down like that, the more you realize, if there's 7 things to move me from a 4 to a 6 or 4 to a 5, I'm not even going to be ready to do all 7 of those things. Right. So let's just work on one or two of them in the next 6 months and see you get better at that. And then 6 months from now, we'll see how we're feeling about your aspiration. But you're right. The notion that a leader doesn't have to mention the aspiration at all is kind of novel. It's like, where is it that we feel like we have to let people down easy, right?
Right. Yeah.
Like your psychology is out of whack because you want to make it to the NBA and you've got complete self-awareness. And so we feel like the most important job there as a leader is to make them aware of how bad they are, to like elevate their lack of awareness. That's not the part that you need to do, right?
And a lot of times, by the way, the leader is just imposing their own disappointment in their own life on you. Like they didn't reach where they wanted to go, and now they're going to just take it out on you.
Yes.
And I think that's true for a lot. And that's why, by the way, when you would look and you say, well, why work to develop corporate leaders? Why work to develop educational leaders, athletic coaches, nonprofit leaders? Because there's a lot of people that do a lot of damage. I mean, I think if you just said, do we think that a lot of coaches for young people do more damage than they do good? A lot of people are going, oh yeah, I've seen that over and over again. So that's the whole point of Field Notes and the whole Admired Leadership Project is to make everybody better at this. So hopefully we're getting better at making people better, and hopefully we're minimizing the amount of damage that we do. But now here's another question. Let me just pose this, because I actually had this conversation with a couple of people at our firm meeting last week. So when we sometimes think about, and I think it ties directly to this field note, when we think about aspiration, and you brought up from the beginning this idea of the kid who wants to be in the NBA, many kids have that desire to be sports stars, YouTube influencers, Broadway stars, whatever it may be. It's probably mostly YouTube influencers at this point. And people do come to this process where they lose their dream, right? And that's a bad thing too, where you just see the life kind of drain out of them. But when you're looking, even in corporate world, like the number of people that would want to be in the C-suite and the number of people that get to the C-suite is a very small number. You can be very smart, very talented, very relationally gifted, all kinds of things, and still not have that combination that makes you the right person at that right time. So, but we certainly know, if you're trying to be in the NBA, that even if you're extraordinarily gifted physically, if you're a really hard worker, you've got great relationships and you're lucky, still probably it's a very infinitesimal chance that you're going to make it to the NBA. So your plan B is really your plan A. Now, the discussion I had with somebody said, but if you actually even open the door to that thought, it will destroy your chances. And I would say, I understand you can't get to Broadway. You can't get to the C-suite unless you're trying to get to Broadway, the C-suite, or the NBA. However, you need to be thinking about what are the things that I can be doing that support that effort, but actually have something that I can offer to make the world better, other people better in that process. And I think that in this field note is a clue to that, which is saying, if I'm going to help you get better at the skills that could take you to the thing that I actually don't think that you are going to get to, it actually will probably give you the skills to have a better, more impactful career and a better life for you and your family anyway. And that's a tremendously good thing.
Okay, so you're dispelling the notion that people who come to you with the goal of, I want to be famous, like you're basically importing your value on me that says, famous isn't a good enough goal in itself, that you should actually reorient that to be like, you want to have influence. You want to change people's lives. You want to make as many people's lives better as possible. And so through any fame that you get, then you'll have increased influence. But what you really want is that influence, the ability to be able to help people's lives become better, right? And then what you do with that influence is built on like where your values are and what your definition of better is and how much sacrifice you're willing to put into that. So all those things are in place for you, no matter, even if you don't reach the highest level of your industry, right? Of your sport, of like whatever craft you are, you can still have that influence. I remember leaving a job and mourning the job that I was leaving because of the kind of influence that I lost, right? And it
Right.
took me a year before I even recognized what I had lost in leaving that job. It was like, oh, and then as I looked around, I thought, I still have the opportunity to gain that influence. I could still be that positive charge in the world that I felt like I lost at that old job. And that's what I created for myself, right? So there's no more aspiration of me like getting back to the spot that I was or the position that I held at that old job. But all the things that I really mourned about it, those things I still work hard for every day.
Oh yeah, but I think you should, and let's just take a minute on this because I want to underline that because it's important. And is that I see this because I've had a couple of my kids have been in performing arts, and even with my youngest now, and she's talking about like, I want to do this and this, and I kind of always say, well, why is that important? What's the thing that you're trying to do for the person that's watching this performance? And so it's always about like, what are you trying to create? I don't even like it myself when I hear professional athletes say, I'm kind of just an entertainer. There's nothing wrong with entertainment, right? But I'm like, no, you are an embodiment of excellence and courage. Like you're like a fundamental inspiration to other human beings about what is possible. Like that, you're holding up a really high standard. That's an enormously gifted position.
You're having that conversation with your daughter, your youngest, who's 13, and she's already involved, 11, and already involved with some high-level performance that she's doing. When she says, I want to be in the NBA, you actually can picture her being at the highest level as an 11-year-old with the skills that she has now. So you're actually doing something different as a leader because you're directing her values and her principles and
go deeper
and how she's right. Yeah. If your daughter is clueless about her own ability and she's been the tree in the Christmas pageant forever and she's never going to be anything more than the tree, you'd be having conversations that are closer to exactly what this field note kind of guides us through. You'd be like, it's going to take a lot of work, right? And you would talk to her not about her aspiration, but about the skill set instead. Right. But because you actually see that your daughter really does have that talent, it changes the conversation because her awareness is probably on point.
Well, look, I taught, as you know, a seminar for when I was in local television news for people that wanted to go into broadcasting. Had thousands and thousands of kids that went through that program in their college years. And I would say at the very beginning, I said, a lot of people want to go into television for money, fame, and power, right? They want to have some version of those rewards. And I'm like, those are both ephemeral and also not real. You're probably not going to make that much money necessarily. You're probably not going to have that much power, and you're not going to be really that much more well-known than the other guy. But if you love truth, if you love narrative, if you love story, if you love impact, if you like that process of creating that value in the world, now that's a more enduring reason to do this. So I think that you as the leader in this field note, if someone's saying, this is what I want to do, just lean into the skills to do it and then underline the reasons that will actually be enduring for why that work is important. Right. And then whether that person gets there or not, you've actually given them a tremendous gift.
Great. So in review, acknowledge the aspiration, but really concentrate on the skills. And
there you go.
That'll help you go a long way. Thanks for your time today. Appreciate it.
See you, Mikey.
Bye now.